Ma'am, I said move. I'm trying. Please, I'm pregnant. You're holding up boarding. Step aside or I'll make you. The words cut through the crowded jet bridge like a cold blade. Passengers froze mid-shuffle, the hum of rolling suitcases rising like nervous static. Melissa Carter, 8 months pregnant, one hand on her lower back and the other balancing a tote, blinked through tears. She wasn't slow on purpose. The aisle narrowed. Her cramps made every step feel like she was walking through mud. The flight attendant, blonde bun, crisp uniform, a badge that glinted beneath harsh LED lights, leaned in. Her name tag read L. Harris. Last warning. People have places to be, Harris muttered, but loud enough for dozens to hear. A murmur rippled. One man lowered his eyes. Another adjusted earbuds, pretending nothing was happening. Melissa's voice trembled. I just need a second. I'm not trying to cause trouble. Harris's jaw tightened. You're blocking first class. Step back to economy. Her arm shot out, not a push with full force, but firm, dismissive, unmistakably shoving Melissa's shoulder enough that she stumbled into the wall. A gasp swelled like wind before a storm. A nearby woman whispered, She's pregnant. You can't do that. But Harris folded her arms. Rules are rules. Melissa steadied herself, heat rushing to her cheeks. She felt the sting, not just of contact, but of humiliation. She looked to the gate window where her husband, Deputy Sheriff Marcus Carter, was still scanning boarding passes 2 rows behind. Harris hadn't noticed the emblem stitched onto his duffel, Tarrant County Sheriff's Office. A cramp seized Melissa's side. Someone reached to help her. Harris blocked the gesture with a flat palm. No assistance needed. She'll manage. The crowd was silent now, stiff and sure. A man started filming with his phone. Another woman raised her voice. Let her sit. She needs help. Harris shot a glare. Sir, stop recording. Ma'am, stay in line. All of you comply. But then Marcus finally saw his wife, her breathing shallow, her back against the metal panel, the attendant's stern posture before her. His hand froze around his boarding pass. His sheriff's badge case, clipped to his belt, caught the overhead light like a warning flare. Marcus stepped forward. Slow. Measured. Eyes fixed on Harris. Ma'am, what exactly did you just do to my wife? Passengers turned. The plane fell so quiet that even the ventilation has felt like thunder. Enjoying this? Tap subscribe for tomorrow's story. Earlier that day, Dallas, Fort Worth, long-term parking. The Texas sun sat high and bright, baking the rows of parked cars. Heat shimmered off windshields. Marcus Carter clicked the lock on their SUV, then hurried around to the passenger side. You good, Mel? He asked softly. Melissa braced both hands on the doorframe and eased herself out. At 8 months, every movement was an operation. I'm slow, she said, forcing a smile. But I'm good. Marcus automatically reached for her suitcase, then her tote, then, as always, her hand. His other hand brushed the leather case on his belt, the one that held his sheriff's badge. It caught a ray of sunlight for a second, then vanished beneath his shirt as he straightened. We can skip this trip if you want, Marcus murmured. Your doctor already cleared it. Melissa cut in. And my mama booked half the church for this shower. We're going. He watched her breathe through a small cramp, then nod. The thought of her mother in Atlanta, decorating a fellowship hall, and telling everyone her grandbaby was already loved, pushed them forward. This flight was not optional. It was a promise. Inside the terminal, air conditioning washed over them in a cool wave. The rumble of rolling suitcases and boarding calls built a steady background hum. Melissa's shoulders dropped an inch in relief. See, she said, we made it. No drama. Marcus smiled. Let's keep it that way. They moved slowly, giving wide berth to the hurried travelers darting around them. A young man in a business suit nearly clipped Melissa's shoulder, then glanced back at her belly and mumbled, Sorry. She just nodded and kept going. At the check-in kiosk, an agent scanned their IDs. Heading to Atlanta, Mrs. Carter? She asked, bright and brisk. Yes, ma'am. My baby shower, Melissa said. The agent's face softened. Well, congratulations. I'll mark your record. If you need pre-boarding, just ask at the gate. Melissa's relief was visible. Thank you. They moved toward security. Marcus noticed her hand drifting to her lower back. You want a wheelchair? He asked. She shook her head. That'll make me feel sick, even if I'm not. I'll walk. You sure? I'm sure Sheriff Carter, she teased, giving him a sideways glance. He chuckled. Ma'am, I'm off duty. Just Marcus today. As they slipped their shoes off and placed items in bins, the badge case again flashed for a second when his shirt pulled up. The TSA officer glanced at it, then at Marcus. Law enforcement, the officer asked. Yes, sir. Tarrant County Sheriff's Office. Appreciate your service. Y'all have a safe flight. Marcus nodded, but his focus was on Melissa, who was carefully stepping through the metal detector. She passed without a beep, then leaned on the railing for a breath. You okay? He asked. Just tired, she said. I'll feel better once I sit on that plane. At the gate, the monitor blinked their flight number, boarding time creeping closer. Melissa eased into a chair. Marcus set their bags at her feet. This is happening, she whispered. In a month, everything changes. He looked at her, at the swell of their child under her dress, at the faint worry in her eyes. In a good way, he said. We're ready. A voice crackled over the speaker, calling for passengers needing extra time or assistance to approach. Marcus glanced at Melissa. You want to board early? She hesitated, pride wrestling with exhaustion. I think I can wait for our group. You sure? He repeated. She nodded. If I baby myself now, I'll worry I can't do anything later. Marcus smiled, but unease flickered behind his eyes. He squeezed her hand. Then we'll board like everyone else, he said. And I'll be right behind you. He didn't know that a single choice, not asking for pre-boarding, would open the door for everything that came next. Dallas, Fort Worth Gate C-27, moments before the shove. The waiting area buzzed with boarding groups and overhead calls. Coffee cups clinked, children tapped shoes against aluminum chair legs, and somewhere nearby a phone played gospel softly. Melissa inhaled and exhaled slowly, hand resting on the curve of her belly. Marcus returned from the vending machine, water bottle in hand. Hydrate, he said, offering it. She uncapped it with stiff fingers, took a careful sip. It's loud today, she murmured. He scanned the crowd. The flight was full, tight rows of weary businessmen, grandparents lugging tote bags, newlyweds snapping selfies. Near the gate podium stood 3 flight attendants. One, with dark hair and a calm expression, smiled as she checked boarding passes. The second typed briskly. The third, El Harris, stood with arms crossed and a gaze that swept the room like she was hunting for noncompliance. Marcus noticed her briefly. A flicker, then gone. Boarding commenced. First class. Premium access. Military. The line formed with practiced impatience. When Group B was called, Melissa pushed herself up. Ready? Marcus asked. She nodded, though her hand trembled on the armrest. The line snaked forward. Marcus let Melissa go ahead, just one step, staying close as her back tightened with another small cramp. A man behind them sighed audibly. She tried to move faster, but her breath caught. You go ahead, she whispered, but he shook his head. No chance. Halfway down the jet bridge, the space narrowed. The air shifted, thinner, warmer, filled with a mixed sense of carpet glue and recycled air. Melissa slowed, needing to shift her weight and brace the rail. The line behind them condensed. That was when Harris appeared, moving briskly from cabin door to jet bridge threshold. Keep it moving, she called. We're behind schedule. Melissa's steps struggled to answer that command. Harris closed distance with a practice stride. Ma'am, you're holding the line, she said. Marcus replied, voice even. She's pregnant and needs a moment. Harris flicked her eyes to Melissa's stomach, then back up without softening. Then step aside and let others pass. Melissa started to shuffle toward the wall, but space was tight. Every movement scraped slow. I'm trying, she said. Just need a second. Harris exhaled sharply, then placed a firm hand near Melissa's elbow, guiding, but too forceful for a body already straining. Melissa lost her balance and caught the metal siding with her palm to avoid falling. A tiny cry escaped her throat. 3 passengers witnessed it clearly. One, a middle-aged woman with a turquoise travel pillow, frowned. She didn't need to be pushed, she said quietly. Harris straightened, expression tightening. I didn't push her. I assisted her to the side. Marcus's hand rose instinctively toward Melissa, but the line trapped him a step back. You touched her without warning, he said. Harris's eyes narrowed. I directed her. We can't have delays. Another contraction tightened beneath Melissa's ribs. She breathed through it, but tears prickled. A man near the back muttered, "Just let her through." Harris snapped, "Sir, remain silent unless spoken to." Marcus's jaw flexed. Something in his gaze hardened, not anger, but resolve. He reached for his badge case under his shirt, but did not reveal it. Not yet. Because Melissa straightened, fragile, trembling, and whispered, "I'm okay. Let's just get to our seats." But Marcus saw the mark of the moment. He saw the humiliation she swallowed to keep peace. He also saw Harris's eyes cold, assessing, and already looking past them like they were an inconvenience instead of people. And that was when the door to true conflict opened. Inside the aircraft, the aisle to row 22. Marcus guided Melissa toward their seats, 22D and 22E, aisle and middle. The cabin felt smaller than usual, overhead lights bright as interrogation lamps, air pushing from vents with a faint dusty chill. Melissa's breaths came shallow, but controlled. A few passengers watched them sit, some with concern, some with discomfort, most with silence. Melissa eased down slowly, gripping the armrest. Marcus helped her buckle the seatbelt. "You okay?" he asked, voice soft. "I think so." She pressed a hand to her abdomen. "Just overwhelmed." He brushed her forehead with his fingers. "We breathe. We settle. We get there." For a moment, peace seemed possible. Then Harris came down the aisle. She moved seat by seat, checking bags, reminding passengers to stow purses fully under seats. When she reached row 22, she paused, not to offer help, but to stand, arms crossed, gaze sharpened like a blade. "You need to secure your tote fully," Harris said. Marcus looked. The bag was half an inch outside the seat line, almost nothing. He pushed it with his boot, sliding it fully beneath. "There," he said calmly. Harris didn't move. "You were asked to keep pace in the jet bridge." "That didn't happen." Melissa blinked up at her. "I wasn't trying to delay anyone. You were asked twice." Harris cut in. A passenger in row 21 leaned back slightly. The turquoise pillow woman, Jane, as she'd later introduce herself, watched with tightened lips. Marcus inhaled slowly. "My wife did her best. She's nearly due." She needed time. Harris didn't nod, didn't blink. "I expect compliance." No exceptions. Another passenger shifted. Then another. A phone screen lifted subtly above seat backs. Someone was recording, quietly. Melissa's hands trembled. She whispered, almost to herself, "Why is she doing this?" Marcus heard. It struck something deep. He reached into his pocket, not for his badge, not yet, but for Melissa's hand. "We stay calm," he murmured. "We see this through." But fate kept pushing. Harris leaned closer to Melissa, voice low yet sharp enough for nearby rows. "If you cannot move quickly or follow instructions, you should have pre-boarded with special assistance." The words weren't loud, but they carried a sting. Proud, tired, emotional. Melissa swallowed it, but it lodged deep. Jane cleared her throat. She didn't deserve to be pushed back there. Harris turned. "Ma'am, that's a false characterization." Jane shook her head. "I saw it. Several of us did." 5 other heads nodded subtly. Harris's jaw flexed. Authority challenged. Eyes narrowed. Her voice clipped. "Recording is prohibited during boarding safety procedures. Anyone filming must stop or surrender footage per security guidelines." The man with the phone lowered it slowly, but he did not delete anything. You could feel the defiance, quiet but steady. Marcus finally spoke with controlled gravity. "We aren't here for conflict. We're here to fly. My wife needs respect, like every passenger." Harris stared. "And I need order, Deputy Carter." Melissa froze. Marcus stiffened. She knew. But no badge was visible. No ID shown. Someone must have seen the case earlier. Or she noticed the belt clip. Or maybe she assumed, with a tone that sounded too knowing. Marcus's eyes changed. Not loud, not confrontational, but sharpened with authority he hadn't wanted to use. "You know I'm law enforcement," he asked quietly. Harris gave the faintest smile. "Just make sure you don't forget it." A warning? Or pride? or fear? No one could tell. But every storyline has a moment when injustice stops being quiet, when restraint becomes resolve. This was that moment. Still aboard, taxiing delayed. The cabin lights dimmed slightly as boarding completed. Luggage thumped into overhead bins. Children rustled snack wrappers. But in row 22, tension sat heavier than the pressurized air. Melissa shifted in her seat, a faint sheen of sweat forming at her temple. The earlier shove hadn't caused sharp pain, but the stress was catching her breath. Marcus noticed every sign. "You want water? Breathing okay?" She nodded. "Just nerves." "And the baby's moving." He placed a calming hand on hers. The gesture grounded them both, quiet, steady. Harris moved to the front of the cabin, speaking into the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, we are ready for final cabin check. Please buckle." Her eyes flickered directly to Melissa mid-sentence. "And comply with crew instructions at all times." It wasn't said harshly, but it was pointed. Jane leaned forward from row 21. "They're watching her like she's a problem." The man across the aisle murmured, "They're waiting for her to slip up." Marcus didn't answer. His jaw worked silently. He wasn't a man who escalated. He lived his life diffusing conflict, not starting it. Then trouble bloomed. A sudden bump from turbulence, or maybe someone brushing past, jostled Melissa's tote. The corner peeked an inch into the aisle again. Harris appeared instantly, like the bag had triggered a silent alarm. "That bag must stay fully under," she clipped. She bent, pushed it with more force than necessary, snapping a zipper tab against the floor. Melissa flinched. Marcus finally stood. The aisle was narrow. His head nearly grazed the overhead panel. His voice remained calm, but firm as steel. "She said she was okay. You've made your point." "Enough." Harris's chin lifted. "Sit down, sir." Marcus didn't. "We paid for a seat, not to be singled out." His voice stayed low to avoid fear, but it carried. Harris folded her arms. "If you cannot follow crew direction, I will request removal before takeoff." A soft ripple of shock rolled through nearby passengers. "She is following instructions," Jane said clearly now. "You're targeting her." Another passenger, older man, gray hair, veteran cap, added, "No law says pregnant women must move fast. Show some compassion." Harris's cheeks colored. She turned toward the front, clearly weighing next steps. Power, control, procedure, and pride. The captain approached from the cockpit, mid-50s, steady eyes, professional calm. "Everything all right here?" he asked. Harris spoke first, crisp. "We have a passenger struggling to comply." The captain looked to Melissa, pale, hands clasped tight, breathing shallow. He looked to Marcus, upright, composed, controlled authority in his posture. "Sir," the captain asked. Marcus gestured slowly to his wife. "She needs patience." "That's it. Nothing more." The captain nodded gently, turning to Harris. "Let's ensure her comfort. We want a safe flight for all." Harris stiffened at what sounded almost like correction. But then quietly, intensely, Melissa whispered, "Marcus, I feel dizzy." Everything froze. Marcus knelt instantly beside her seat. Jane reached for call button. The veteran stood to offer water. Hands extended, support, not intrusion. Harris hesitated, conflict warring behind her eyes. In that moment, the twist began to seed, because help was coming. Not from anger, not from a scene, but from something Harris had not anticipated. A sheriff kneeling for his wife with the calm authority of a man who knows the system and knows how to hold it accountable. And across the cabin, cameras quietly continued recording. Cabin paused on tarmac, first hint of power shift. Marcus steadied Melissa with one arm as she closed her eyes, taking slow breaths. The plane had not left the gate yet. Engines hummed at idle, but no movement came. The captain remained nearby. Passengers leaned in, tense but compassionate. Harris stood at the aisle like a barrier, uncertain for the first time. "I'll get water," Jane offered. Marcus nodded gratefully. "Thank you." Melissa's pulse fluttered beneath his fingers. "I just need to sit still," she whispered. "Baby's kicking hard." Marcus lifted his wallet not to flash power, but to retrieve her prenatal info card. As he slid it out, the badge beside it caught the overhead light, bright, unmistakable. Not shown with pride. Simply present. Harris inhaled sharply. The captain noticed as well. His gaze shifted from confusion to clarity. "Deputy Carter," he said quietly, reading the embossment. "Is your wife in medical distress?" Marcus answered steady, professional. "She needs calm. We need cooperation. We don't want conflict." Harris stepped back, posture cracking like thawing ice. The captain spoke to her with measured authority. "Passenger comfort is a safety priority, especially pregnancy." "Understood." Harris swallowed. "Yes, Captain." Jane returned with a small cup of water. "Here, honey. Sip slow." Melissa smiled faintly. The tension in the cabin eased, except around Harris, whose expression flickered between defensiveness and embarrassment. Her authority, moments earlier towering, now stood on uneven ground. And then the first twist unfolded. The man who had filmed earlier, mid-40s, denim jacket, quietly observant, raised a hand. "I'm a retired ADA from Houston," he said clearly enough for nearby rows. "I saw what happened in the jet bridge. We have witnesses. And if the airline mishandled a pregnant passenger, especially one married to law enforcement, this won't disappear quietly. Not a threat. A statement of reality." Passengers murmured. Harris's shoulders tensed. Marcus lifted a hand. "We're not here for legal battles. We want respect. Nothing more." The ADA nodded. "Respect is earned through accountability. If needed, I can provide statements to your department or the airline review board." "Many of us can." Heads nodded around them, 6, 8 more. Harris paled. She had expected a quiet couple to endure her impatience. She had not expected a sheriff and a retired ADA supported by a cabin full of witnesses. That's when the captain made a decision. "I'd like to speak privately with both of you," he said, motioning toward the galley, "to ensure we proceed appropriately." Marcus looked to Melissa. She nodded faintly. "I'll be okay here," she whispered. Jane slid to Marcus's aisle seat without hesitation. "I'll sit beside her till you're back. No one bothers her." The captain led Marcus forward, while Harris followed, rigid as metal. In the galley, the captain faced her, calm but firm. "We cannot appear discriminatory or negligent toward a pregnant passenger," he said. "You initiated unnecessary physical contact." Harris's voice faltered. "I was enforcing procedure." She was slow. "We were late." Marcus replied evenly. "Procedure doesn't override dignity." Silence. Heavy. Unavoidable. Harris looked away, not defiant now, but shaken by consequence. Marcus placed his badge wallet on the counter. Not waved, not flaunted, just set gently where the light struck it again, a symbol of quiet truth. "I'm not here as an officer," he said. "I'm here as a husband." And she deserved better. The captain nodded, decision forming like sunrise. Passengers watched from seats, waiting. Something was about to change. Still in galley, the reversal begins. The engine hum deepened as ground crew signaled ready, but the cabin remained still. This flight could not move until something deeper did first. Marcus stood with steady posture, badge lying beside his hand like quiet evidence of truth. Harris kept her gaze low, breathing uneven, the earlier confidence drained into pale tension. The captain folded his arms with measured authority. "I need to ask plainly, Ms. Harris. Do you place your hand on the passenger in the jet bridge?" Harris hesitated too long. Marcus didn't speak for her. He simply waited. Silence can be more powerful than accusation. At last, her voice came small and strained. "I guided her." Maybe too firmly. The captain's tone remained calm but firm. "A pregnant passenger should never be physically hurried. We must prioritize care over schedule." Harris blinked. Her jaw softened, not defiant now, but frightened by what she had allowed herself to become in a moment of impatience. The truth had weight she could no longer ignore. "We have witnesses ready to provide statements," Marcus said gently. "I'm not seeking punishment. I'm seeking decency." The retired ADA stepped forward from row 21. He had moved quietly during the pause, now standing just inside the galley doorway. "I will submit testimony regardless," he said evenly. "Not out of spite, but for procedural review. Accountability protects everyone." Harris's breath hitched. I never meant to harm her. Marcus nodded slowly. Then show it now. This was the turning point. The captain reached for the cabin phone, voice steady. I'm notifying ground control. We will delay departure for formal documentation and medical clearance. Passengers murmured approval, soft waves of support. Harris's eyes widened. Captain, is that necessary? Yes, he replied. We cannot continue until this is resolved professionally and compassionately. If the Carters choose to file a report, we will cooperate fully. That single sentence shifted the entire plane. Marcus returned to Melissa, who looked up with relief and fatigue. You okay? He asked softly. She nodded weakly. What happened? He knelt again, holding her hands. They heard you. They see you. And things are changing. Jane smiled warmly from beside her. There's good people here, honey. You're not alone. Then, unexpectedly, Harris approached. Her voice trembled. Mrs. Carter, I apologize. My handling was inappropriate. You deserved patience, and I failed to offer it. Melissa's eyes glistened. She didn't relish the apology. She needed it to heal. Thank you, she whispered. I just wanted to feel safe. Harris nodded, shoulders falling, not defeated, but humbled. I'm requesting reassignment for the remainder of the flight. Another attendant will serve this section. The captain approved with a brief nod, swift, respectful, final. A new attendant replaced her, calm, attentive, gentle. She placed a small pillow behind Melissa's back and adjusted her belt for comfort. Tell me if you need anything, she said sincerely. Harris stepped back toward the galley, pale but changed. Not villain defeated, staff confronted and corrected. And as Melissa sipped water, breathing easier, Marcus felt the shift settle like sunlight after storm. The cabin was never loud, but the silence was full now. Not of tension, of awareness, of unity. Passengers who once watched silently now offered soft nods. One family passed a snack pouch. A grandmother patted Melissa's arm and whispered, You're strong, sweetheart. Justice had not roared. It had arrived quietly, through witness, through truth, through accountability embraced rather than forced. And yet, consequence was only beginning. In the air 1 hour later, the plane finally lifted from the runway, engines rising into a steady climb. Melissa rested easier, pillow supporting her lower back. Marcus kept one hand near hers, not gripping, just present. The tension of earlier didn't vanish, but softened like morning fog. Harris was no longer in their row. She worked forward cabin tasks quietly, away from the Carters and away from easy power. Her posture was smaller, her tone measured. She avoided Marcus's gaze, not from fear, from recognition. The new attendant, Evelyn Brooks, moved gently along the aisle with small comforts, ginger ale, crackers, extra napkins. She paused at row 22 now and then. How's the little one? She asked Melissa softly. Kicking strong, Melissa whispered. That's a fighter, Evelyn smiled. Across the cabin, passengers watched, not gawking, but invested. The retired AD jotted notes on a small notepad. Jane knitted something lavender-colored with slow, soothing rhythm. The veteran dozed lightly, but kept one hand on his armrest, alert beneath rest. Unity formed where silence once lived. Then, 40 minutes into flight, a chime rang, seatbelt sign-off. People stirred. A quiet moment, until the intercom crackled. This is Captain Reynolds. We'd like to recognize a situation earlier in boarding. Our airline is committed to dignity for all passengers. If anyone feels they were treated unfairly today, please know a full incident report is in process, and your statements will be welcomed upon landing. The cabin reacted not with applause, but with collective breath, relief heard more than spoken. Not spectacle. Accountability. Marcus leaned closer to Melissa. You holding up? She nodded, eyes glassy. I'm proud we spoke up without hatred. I'm proud we stayed calm. That's who you are, he murmured. Minutes later, Harris approached, not to defend herself this time, but to listen. She stood 2 rows away first, hands clasped, breathing steadying. A moment passed. Then step by step, she reached row 22. Deputy Carter, she said quietly, may I speak with you? Off record, Marcus exchanged a look with Melissa. She nodded gently. He rose and followed Harris to the galley, but this time she didn't lead the space. She stood beside him, not in front. I reviewed my actions, she began, voice steadier than before. And I realized something I didn't want to see. I was rushing, focused on time, not people. And I reacted with frustration, not empathy. Marcus didn't interrupt. Harris continued, voice softer. I saw you were law enforcement. It should have reminded me to treat your wife with care. Instead, I tightened. I felt challenged. And I acted poorly. Marcus breathed slowly, the way trained officers do when choosing words that matter. Authority means nothing if we forget humanity, he said. But accountability isn't the end. It's the start. Harris blinked. You believe I can do better? Yes, Marcus replied. If you choose to. She exhaled, a release of pride, ego, uncertainty. I intend to cooperate with the report. And when we land, I'll speak directly with Airline Review to recommend additional training. Starting with me, that mattered more than punishment ever could. Growth, not defeat. When Marcus returned to his seat, Melissa reached for his hand again, grateful, trembling, steady. What did she say? She asked. She's trying to change, he answered simply. And outside the cabin window, clouds passed like unfolding pages, white, soft, a future written new. The fallout was measured, human, real. But what would come after landing could change more than one person. Atlanta arrival, Gate B12, dusk settling through glass. When wheels touched ground, the cabin released a collective breath. Engines slowed, flaps rose, and travelers unbuckled with tire relief. Melissa held Marcus's arm as she stood, slower this time, but steadier. A wheelchair waited at the jet bridge, not forced on her, but offered with dignity. Jane appeared first, placing a knitted lavender square into Melissa's hands. For the baby, she said. So they know strangers cared. Melissa's eyes shined. I'll treasure it. The veteran stepped up next, tipping his cap. You kept calm, deputy. Proud of that. Then he nodded to Melissa. And you're strong, ma'am. Real strong. The retired ADA approached with a folder of witness contacts he'd collected quietly during flight. These are voluntary statements, he told Marcus. No pressure to use them. Just truth preserved. Marcus accepted with gratitude, but not triumph. Thank you for standing with us. When Harris appeared near the jet bridge, she didn't hide. Her uniform still crisp, but posture changed, less rigid, more aware. She held a single document, a written acknowledgement requesting formal review and voluntary participation in passenger care training. She offered it to Melissa, not Marcus. I want to learn from this, she said gently. Not because I was told to, but because I should. Melissa read the shaky signature at the bottom, then placed her hand lightly over Harris's. Growth matters. Thank you for choosing it. No applause. No spectacle. Just a human moment that mended more than it reopened. Evelyn Brooks rolled the wheelchair forward. We'll take good care of you both, she promised. Marcus walked beside Melissa as they moved through the terminal, past bustling arrivals, past families reuniting, past strangers who had silently witnessed something shift at 30,000 feet. At baggage claim, Marcus paused. You want to file this now? Or later? Melissa thought carefully, hand resting on her belly, where life moved with quiet certainty. Yes, she said, but not for revenge. For change. So the next woman isn't pushed. So someone thinks twice before hurrying a body that needs care. Marcus nodded. Then we file it together. They approached the airport liaison desk. Harris stood nearby, waiting, not running. She had chosen to participate in the review she initiated. That mattered more than silence ever could. The report was filed respectfully, fact over fury, clarity over anger. Witnesses who wished to contribute it. Those who didn't were not pressured. 1 hour later, everything necessary was recorded. As Marcus wheeled Melissa toward the exit doors, evening breeze washed over them, cooler, calmer, a different air than the jet bridge hours before. Melissa squeezed his hand. We stayed who we are, Marcus. And the world listened, he replied. They stepped into Georgia twilight, not victorious, but grounded. Not bitter, but whole. Inside, a baby kicked gently, as if already knowing dignity had been protected before birth. 3 months later, Sunday morning, Atlanta Community Park. Sunlight filtered through tall oak leaves, warm and dappled where it landed on picnic blankets. Children chased bubbles. Acoustic guitar floated soft across the grass. A small community event, family day, food stalls, quiet joy. On a blanket near the water, Melissa rocked a sleeping newborn daughter against her chest. Tiny fingers curled beneath a lavender-knitted blanket, the one Jane made. The motif returned, gentle, not heavy-handed. Marcus sat beside her slicing soft fruit, one eye always scanning like habit, the other warm with peace. 3 months already, Melissa whispered, kissing their daughter's forehead. Marcus nodded, smile slow. She came early, but strong. Across the lawn, a familiar figure approached. Harris, no longer stiff in uniform, but in simple blouse and jeans, walked carefully, hands clasped, carrying a small white envelope. Her posture held humility now, not command. "Hi, Melissa." Deputy Carter. Voice quiet. Tone changed. Marcus stood, but relaxed, welcoming. "Good to see you, Ms. Harris." She exhaled with relief. "Just Linda today. I wanted to bring something." She handed the envelope to Melissa. Inside lay a printed letter from the airline's training division. New policy modules implemented for compassionate boarding assistance, including scenario training built from their incident. Names removed for privacy, but impact unmistakable. And attached, a short handwritten note. "Thank you for teaching me without hatred. You changed more than one flight." Linda Harris. Melissa felt her throat tighten. Not with anger, with grace. She looked up, eyes warm, forgiving. "Hurt turned to healing," Melissa said softly. Linda smiled, humbled, eyes glistening. "And I'm still learning. I hope someday I can be someone your daughter meets and feels safe with." Marcus extended his hand. "I believe you already started becoming her." They shook hands. No cameras, no applause, only growth. Linda knelt briefly to admire the sleeping baby. "She's beautiful. She'll change this world." Melissa stroked the lavender blanket. "Only if we show her how." Later, as clouds drifted slow and unhurried, Marcus adjusted the stroller and hugged his wife from behind. The quiet day mirrored their journey, not dramatic, but deeply human. "Remember that airport?" Melissa murmured. Marcus chuckled softly. "Long as I live, I'll learn something," she said. "Dignity doesn't shout. It stands. And standing invites others to rise." He kissed her temple. "And you rose with grace." Their daughter stirred, stretching tiny hands like reaching towards sunlight. Just ahead, the ADA walked by with his wife, smiled, waved. A little farther, Jane sat knitting under a gazebo, lavender yarn spinning gently. The veteran fed ducks with his grandson. Small, watchful community woven by one hard day, now softened. No spectacle. No bitterness. Just people who witnessed wrong, then helped make right. And across the park, Linda walked with careful hope. Her change was not instant, but it was real. Melissa leaned her head to Marcus's shoulder. "Let's teach her kindness," she whispered. Marcus held his family close. And strength, when kindness is tested, the baby sighed, rested safe. The world didn't become perfect, but it became better, one choice at a time. Andy, thanks for watching.